Hi, this is Seema and I am back with a new lesson on teenage secrets. Well, what is it to be a teenager? Well, teenage is basically that time of your life when you're not really a child, but then you're not really an adult either. And therefore, teenagers are often very confused. They feel that certain things they do are not really grown up, and certain things they do end up being too childish. Therefore, they end up keeping a lot of things to themselves. And therefore, teenagers have a lot of secrets. Well, these are some of them. Now, you may have kept one or maybe two of these secrets as a teenager. Well, let's have a look at what they are. The first one is unauthorized usage of vehicles. So, as a teenager, you may have been guilty of driving without a license. Or maybe you already had a motor license. It could be a license to drive a car or ride a bike, but you have driven without maybe your parents' permission. So one of the very common secrets a teenager won't tell their parents is that at some point in time or the other, they ended up taking their parents' car to drive it without even having a valid license, or maybe they had a license and they took it without their permission. Well, I was guilty of one of these many a times. And our next secret, which is very common in teenagers, is hiding their real ambitions. Now, as I said, as a teenager, you're not really an adult. So you have a lot of ambitions. You aspire to do a lot of things as an adult. But your parents, they don't want you to do what you want to do. So you might want to be an actor or a dancer, but your parents want you to be a doctor or, let's say, an engineer. So because you don't want to disappoint your parents, you will hide your real ambitions. So you may, go to a dance class without your parents knowing about it, or you might enroll in certain acting classes in your college without your parents knowing about it. A lot of teenagers hide their real ambitions for fear that their parents won't understand. And another very common secret that teenagers keep to themselves is pornography. Well, let me say that pornography is not just a teenage secret. I would say it is a secret across all age groups. So I know a lot of people, even right into their adult or middle age, who indulge in pornography. Well, what is pornography? Pornography is basically viewing explicit adult or sexual images. Well, pornography, sadly, is very easily accessible these days. So these are paid sites you can go to when logging onto a computer. You have a lot of magazines which, through which you can view a lot of sexual content or a lot of adult images. So these are sexual or adult images that teenagers, and I would say every age group, always view, and that's one of the most common secrets that teenagers have. A very common secret again is not revealing fights. Now, what do I mean by not revealing fights? As a teenager, you have very good friends, so you may have a certain circle of friends that you hang around with. Now, you will never reveal the fights that you have with this close-knit group of yours to your parents. So your parents are probably aware that you are, hanging around with this particular group of people. But when you have a fight, you make sure that you make up and resolve your issues without letting your parents know about it. So you don't let your parents know about it. You hide it from your parents. All right. And the next teenage secret is bad hygiene. Well, not all teenagers have bad hygiene. There are a few of them. So some teenagers, they do not really take very good care of themselves. A lot of boys I know can maybe just go into the bathroom. They just go and wash their face, spray a little bit of water on their hair, or just apply a deodorant and come out, but they've not really taken an actual bath. So bad hygiene is sometimes a common thing that teenagers, indulge in. And it is a secret because obviously they wouldn't allow anyone to know that they've not really had a proper wash. Now that we've already looked at 5 teenage secrets, let's look at another 5. Okay, now we've got financial secrets. Well, what kind of financial secrets would a teenager keep? Well, there are several of them, but I'll just name a few. Okay, so a lot of teenagers don't really want anyone to know exactly how much money they have. So a teenager, for example, may take up a part-time job without anyone knowing about it, which means that their parents are not even aware that they have a part-time job which fetches them a little extra money. So that way a teenager earns money through their monthly allowance which their parents give, plus the extra bucks which come out of this part-time job. As a teenager, when my parents sent me to buy, bread or meat or anything, I would end up taking more money from them by telling them that, the price of bread is not so much, but I would, quote a little higher price and pocket the extra money to myself. So you take extra money, half of which you pocket. I know a friend of mine who had a phone, a brand new phone that was gifted by his parents. To make that extra money, he sold the brand new phone and then bought a second-hand phone and pocketed the money that was left from the new phone which was purchased. So these are some different ways that teenagers make extra money without anyone knowing about it. And another very common secret among teenagers is memorizing phone numbers. Now, they do this because they don't want their parents to see who is calling them. So maybe as a teenager, you may have a boyfriend or maybe a girlfriend that you don't want your parents to know about. So you will memorize their numbers so that when they call you, which I'm sure they do very often, their numbers will not pop on your screen. So you can tell your parents something like, oh, that was my tutor, that was my dance teacher. So you memorize important phone numbers of friends that your parents don't like. So these are friends that your parents disapprove of, okay, that they don't like or they disapprove of. Now, another very commonly kept secret among teenagers is drug, alcohol, or sexual abuse. A lot of teenagers, and sadly, a lot of teenagers indulge in very high drug abuse. It could be drugs right from cocaine to LSD to methamphetamine, to marijuana. It could be all of this. It could also be alcohol. A lot of teenagers are very highly influenced by alcohol, and a lot of teenagers right from the age of 13 to 14 are very, very sexually active. So teenagers do keep these secrets from their parents because, of course, your parents wouldn't be happy if you were taking too much of drugs or alcohol or indulging in a lot of sexual activity. Okay, and our next teenage secret talks about damaging property. Now, as a teenager, you are a little bit, high on emotions. You tend to get a little bit angry, not a little bit, I'd say a lot angry than most normal people. So you end up doing things that are not very good for yourself or for the things around you. So I know a lot of people during their teenage years, especially boys, they end up damaging property. Like they might end up damaging their own car, somebody else's car. They in their anger they might end up breaking something in their homes, but when their parents come in, they kind of try to keep a secret and try to tell the parents that it happened by mistake, it was accidental, or somebody else did it. But damaging property is a very commonly kept teenager secret. And one of the last ones I have in my list is cheating on studies. Well, teenagers are obviously children. Well, they're not children, but they are still studying, maybe in universities or maybe in school. So a lot of teenagers cheat on their studies. What does cheating on studies mean? It means that you don't do your homework, okay? You may not do your homework or your assignments that you are given on a regular basis. It could also mean that when you are in class and when you are taking a test, there is a team effort. Well, I did this a lot of times, okay? When I was giving a test, I'd make sure I got all the answers, not because I studied very well, but because a lot of people around me helped me to get the answer. And that's how I passed my exams. Well, that's not a very nice thing to do, but this is a very common teenage secret. Well, that's it from me on this lesson on secrets that teenagers keep. I hope you found it very interesting. If you have any more teenage secrets that I've not mentioned in here, kindly put them down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. You take good care of yourself. Goodbye.